CEO fired the janitor wife he was ashamed of. In front of his board, unaware, she was the majority shareholder Undercover, and her single phone call left him homeless. He thought he was cleaning up a stain on his reputation, but he was actually wiping away his entire future. The boardroom was silent, the air thick with tension and the smell of expensive cologne, as Marcus Thorne stood at the head of the mahogany table. He looked like the picture of success. Tailored Italian suit, a Patek Philippe watch catching the light, and a sneer that suggested he owned the world. Standing near the door, clutching a mop bucket and wearing a grey, shapeless uniform that smelled of bleach, was Elena, his wife. "Get out," Marcus hissed, his voice slicing through the room. "I told you never to come to this floor when the board is in session. You are an embarrassment." Elena looked down, gripping the handle of the mop until her knuckles turned white. "I was just doing my job, Marcus." The spill. "Your job is to be invisible," Marcus shouted, losing his composure. He looked around at the board members, 12 men and women, who controlled the fate of Thorne Enterprises. They were watching with a mix of shock and pity. Beside Marcus sat Jessica, his new VP of Operations, a woman with sharp features and even sharper ambition. She laughed, a cruel, tinkering sound. "Oh, honey," she said to Elena, smoothing her silk skirt. "Look at you. You smell like industrial cleaner. It's really ruining the appetite for the lunch we ordered." Marcus turned back to Elena, his eyes cold. "You heard her. You're fired. As an employee, and—" He paused for dramatic effect, looking at Jessica with a smirk. "And as my wife. My lawyers will send the papers to the basement where you sleep. Now, get out before I have security drag you out like the trash you are." He laughed then, a sound of pure arrogance, unaware that the woman he was humiliating wasn't just a janitor. She was the one who had built him. She was the one who owned him. And the phone in her pocket was about to ring with a call that would crush his entire world. This story is going to teach you that arrogance is a blindfold that leads you off a cliff, that you should never bite the hand that secretly feeds you, and that the person cleaning your floor might just own the building you're standing in. Before we dive in, kindly hit the subscribe button and tell us where you are watching from. 5 years earlier, Marcus hadn't been a CEO. He hadn't even been a manager. He was a desperate, debt-ridden junior analyst at a failing logistics firm, eating instant noodles and wearing suits he bought at thrift stores. He had met Elena late one night in the office. She was emptying the trash bins, humming a soft melody. She had kind eyes and a smile that didn't judge him for the holes in his shoes. "You're working late again," she had said, offering him a sandwich she'd brought from home. "You need to eat to think." Marcus had devoured the sandwich, grateful for the kindness. He didn't know then that Elena wasn't just a cleaner. She was Elena Vance, the sole heiress to the Vance global fortune, a woman who had stepped away from her ivory tower to understand her grandfather's company from the ground up. She wanted to know what it felt like to be invisible, to find someone who loved her for her soul, not her billions. And she thought she found that in Marcus. He seemed ambitious, hard-working, and humble. They started dating, sharing cheap meals on park benches. Elena fell in love with his drive. She decided to help him, secretly. When Marcus suddenly got a promotion to manager, he thought it was his hard work. He didn't know Elena had made a call to the HR director. When his brilliant idea for a merger was accepted by the CEO, he didn't know Elena had rewritten his proposal while he slept and emailed it from an anonymous account. When he was appointed CEO of the newly formed Thorne Enterprises, he strutted around the penthouse they had moved into, paid for by company bonuses that were actually Elena's private transfers, and told her she should quit her cleaning job. "No," Elena had said. "I like to stay grounded. It reminds me of where we started." Marcus had sneered. "Suit yourself. Just don't embarrass me in public." But as the money piled up, so did Marcus's ego. The humble analyst vanished. In his place was a monster who treated waiters like servants and his wife like a dirty secret. He stopped coming home for dinner. He started working late with Jessica. And slowly, he began to resent Elena. She was a reminder of his poverty, a stain on his polished new life, which brought them to today. The board meeting, the firing, the humiliation. Elena turned away from the table, pushing her cleaning cart toward the door. The wheels squeaked in the silence. "And take your bucket with you," Jessica called out, throwing a crumpled napkin at Elena's back. "Don't miss a spot on your way out." Marcus chuckled, high-fiving Jessica. "God, she's pathetic. I don't know why I tolerated her for so long." "Gentlemen," he addressed the board, adjusting his tie. "Now that the distraction is gone, let's discuss the acquisition of the Omni Group. I'm planning to lay off 40% of their workforce to boost our quarterly bonus." The board members exchanged uneasy glances. One of them, an older man named Mr. Henderson, cleared his throat. "Marcus, are you sure about this divorce? Elena has been with you since the beginning." "She's a janitor, Henderson," Marcus scoffed. "She doesn't fit the brand. Jessica fits the brand. Besides, with the bonus from this acquisition, I'm buying a villa in Tuscany. Elena can go back to whatever gutter I found her in." Suddenly, the heavy double doors of the boardroom swung open again. But this time, there was no squeak of a cleaning cart. There was the sharp, authoritative click of high heels on marble. Two large men in dark suits entered first, standing on either side of the door. Then, a woman walked in. She wasn't wearing a gray uniform. She was wearing a bespoke white Chanel suit that screamed power. Her hair was no longer pulled back in a messy bun, but cascaded in perfect waves around her shoulders. She wore diamonds that cost more than the entire building. It was Elena. But it wasn't the Elena Marcus knew. This woman radiated an aura of command that made the air in the room drop 10 degrees. Marcus blinked, confused. "Elena? What? What are you wearing? Did you steal that?" Jessica stood up, her face twisting in anger. "Security! Why is this cleaning lady back in here?" "Sit down," Elena said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that slammed Jessica back into her chair. Elena walked to the head of the table. She didn't look at Marcus. She looked at the empty chair next to him, the chairman's seat, which had been vacant for years because the majority shareholder was anonymous. She sat down. "You can't sit there," Marcus shouted, his face turning red. "That's reserved for the majority shareholder. Get up before I have you arrested." "I am sitting exactly where I belong," Elena said calmly. She placed a thin folder on the table. Mr. Henderson, the board member who had spoken earlier, smiled. "Good morning, Ms. Vance. We've been waiting for you." "Vance?" Marcus whispered, the color draining from his face. "No. Vance is the family that owns 60% of this company," Elena finished for him. She looked at him now, her eyes clear and cold. "And everything else you think is yours." The room spun around Marcus. "But you're a janitor. You scrub toilets." "I scrubbed toilets because I wanted to see if the man I loved had a soul," Elena said. "I wanted to see how you treated people who couldn't do anything for you. And for 5 years, I watched. I watched you become cruel. I watched you cheat I watched you steal credit for my ideas." "Your ideas?" Jessica laughed nervously. "You're lying. You're just a crazy ex-wife." Elena pulled her phone out. "Jessica, you're currently driving a leased Porsche Panamera, correct? And living in the corporate apartment on Fifth Avenue?" "Yes, and?" "I just cancelled the lease, and the apartment is in my name. Security is changing the locks as we speak. Your things are on the curb. It's raining, by the way." Jessica's mouth fell open. She looked at her phone 3 missed calls from the building manager. She grabbed her bag and ran out of the room without looking back at Marcus. Marcus was trembling. He tried to laugh, but it came out as a dry choke. "Elena, baby, look, this is a lot to process." "Okay, so you're rich. That's great. We're rich. We can go to Tuscany." "I was just joking about the divorce. You know how stress gets to me." He reached out to touch her hand. Elena didn't move her hand, but her gaze stopped him like a physical wall. "You fired me, Marcus, remember? You said I was trash. You said I was a stain." "I didn't mean it," Marcus pleaded, sweat pouring down his forehead. "I love you. We're a team. I'm the CEO. You're the owner. We're a power couple." Elena opened the folder in front of her. "Actually, regarding the CEO position." She pulled out a document. "I, as the majority shareholder, am calling for an immediate vote of no confidence in the current CEO." "Seconded," Mr. Henderson said immediately. "All in favor of removing Marcus Thorne, effective immediately?" Elena asked. Every single hand in the room went up. "Motion carried," Elena said. She looked at Marcus. "You're fired." "You can't do this to me," Marcus screamed, slamming his fist on the table. "I built this company." "You built nothing." Elena's voice rose, finally showing the anger she had held back for years. "I hired you. I promoted you. I funded the accounts. I wrote the strategies. You were just the face, and now that face is ugly to me." She tapped her phone screen. "I also just froze the company credit cards you've been using for your personal expenses. And since you signed that prenup thinking I was the poor one, you leave this marriage with exactly what you brought into it." Marcus froze. He remembered the prenup. He had insisted on it, laughing that he didn't want her debt to affect his credit score. "My debt?" he whispered. "Your debt," Elena corrected. "Student loans, credit cards, and the lease on your car is in the company name, so I'll be taking the keys." "No," Marcus gasped, backing away. "Elena, please. I have nowhere to go. I have nothing." "You have your health," Elena said, standing up, "and you have the experience of being a janitor's husband. Maybe you can find a job cleaning floors. I hear they're hiring in the basement." She turned to security. "Escort Mr. Thorne out of the building. If he resists, drag him out like the trash he is." 2 guards grabbed Marcus by the arms. He kicked and screamed, begging, crying, calling her name. "Elena, I love you, please. Have mercy." His voice faded as they dragged him down the hallway, past the secretaries he had ignored, past the interns he had bullied, and out onto the wet pavement of the street. Marcus Thorne stood on the sidewalk as the rain began to pour. He reached into his pocket for his phone to call an Uber, but the screen flashed. Service suspended. A sleek black limousine pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down. It was Elena. She looked at him one last time, shivering in his expensive suit that was now soaked through. "You wanted me to be invisible, Marcus," she said softly. "Now you are." The window rolled up. The car splashed a wave of dirty puddle water onto his trousers as it sped away, leaving him alone in the cold city he thought he owned. He had fired his wife to impress a board of directors, unaware that he was simply handing in his resignation from a life of luxury he never deserved. This story teaches us that true power doesn't need to shout, and true worth isn't found in a suit. Marcus saw a uniform and saw nothing. Elena saw a soul and gave everything, until she realized the soul wasn't there. Wealth without character is just poverty in a mask. Viewers, do you think Marcus deserved to lose everything, or was Elena too harsh? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about karma, justice, and the truth revealed.